It was pretended as in the past, as we have been remembered through the days. 1922, October, Italy, as Mussolini launched a global assault to the society, threatening the society to the state, and took the political power without respecting any rules, without respect of basic rules of that has been building strength there and remain in the human history exactly 102 years old as the birth of fascism. All of that led to a situation, a complex situation in Europe. The Nazism was born as a part of the supremacist German ideals, take their inspiration and led precisely to the rising of Hitler as a phenomenon, and from the Nazis as a symbology and all the meaning behind of that. Not only the birth, but the application. Fascisms are deeply bound with each other, and led Europe and the humankind with one of the worst crimes that is known in centuries, only matched with the crimes of massive extermination committed in America with the colonization and conquer process. Only could be compared with crimes that are trying to be hidden by the Eurocentrist and Western translation, but crimes that exterminate nations and entire populations. Europe and the world know it with the fascism and with the Nazis. Ideologies based mainly in hatred and society division, and strongly backed in the time by the world power. Elements that also the history records from post-war tried to cloud, as the elite of the political power favored the uprising of the fascism and the Nazism, as the consolidation of the political power of Hitler was favored by the big industries of the United States. There are important last names there, like the Bush one, the grandfather. If we have a Bush father that it was a president and one that it was a son who was also a president, we have also a grandfather. If you investigate a little bit, having been erased in social network or internet, you can see as Preston Bush, the Bush grandfather, was managing accounts and money amounts of the Nazis party and Hitler. Why the fascist ideology was imposed? Because that was the desperate answer of the elite of the United States and Europe to the rising of the Soviet Union, to the rising of the labor movement, the socialism that had two currents, the social democratic that at the same time had different kind of currents. One of them, the revolutionary social democracy with Lenin and the Bolsheviks, and the communist parties that later on were bathed in glory in the fight against the fascism and the victory against the fascism in Italy, in France, and Yugoslavia, and the entire Europe. So that was an answer we could call hatred, class hatred, answered, from the fear to lose the privileges and from the eager of the total power. Those are two key elements when we study, because we have to study the fascism psychology. A great shrink who studied from another lens, a little bit peculiar, but he found elements of the mass impact that the fascism had an enormous impact. First of all, the annihilation of any current rebel current, socialist current, all alternative. It is the first element that is repeated in other experiences in history as the colonialism as well. To exterminate the adversary, turn it into a hatred enemy. And that ideology was reproduced with a lot of strength. That's why the poem that Bertolt Brecht made popular, but wrote another poet, a pastor from the Protestant church from Germany who followed Hitler, but then he found out the essence of the Nazism. And he said, but late, when they came to find the communist, I didn't say anything because I wasn't communist. When they come to get the union workers, I didn't say anything because I wasn't from a union. But when it came to exterminate the Jews, I also make silence. But when they came for me, no one was left behind to say something. So the process of persecution and to establish the terror situation, a terror state when you have the political power, and the annulment by the brutal attack path of the fear to any contrary forces. So when we say, dear comrades, heads and institutional leaders of Venezuela, constitutional representative, President of the National Assembly, Jorge Rodriguez, the legislative power of the country, General Prosecutor Tarek William Saab, Defender of the People, Executive Vice President Dr. Delcy Rodriguez, and Government Vice President, Governors Present, Bolivarian Armed Forces. Why rise the fascism and the Nazism a long time ago? In response of the development of the humankind, the socialism, and to the build of a great power that is beyond criticism, that will be the Union of Socialist Republic, Socialist Soviet Republic. By the first time, the society built a superpower economy and military totally alternative to what it was 10,000 years of colonialism. And the ideas of socialism melt in all civilizations and cultures and regions in the world. All of them. America, Asia, Africa, Europe, United States of North America. And the reaction of the dominant class was desperate. And they valued the everything can be done, everything you can do, with the hope that the monster that they have been creating could destroy what they wanted to stop and destroy. The example of a socialism that is getting greener as a political power alternative to the humankind. The monster was out of his hand, and it was looking like late, and the enemy that they want to destroy with this monster, Hitler and Mussolini and then Franco, saved them. Because it was the Red Army and the Soviet Union people who saved the humankind. And the communist partisans from France, Italy, Yugoslavia, were the ones who saved the humankind. Through these days, troubled times, existed ambassador. The nation society was the first experience that the humankind had, that later on was taken by Mr. Foreign Affairs Ministry, and later on was retake to found the United Nations organization after the war in 1945. The Nation Society was the first experience, and at the time wasn't old, as today is being cancelled the system of United Nations. We are defenders of the United Nations Charter, and we do believe in the system of the United Nations, but one that avails the international law and the right of the people, the right of independence, to peace, of no intervention, and not to be used as a tool as the Nation Society was used at the time to let perform. And to let perform led to the beautiful experience and experiment of the Spanish people of 1931-1939 with the Republic of Spain, glorious, heroic, and always well remember the Second Republic of Spain. The Spain Republic was dropped in blood by the fascism and the Nazism. I was talking about that with some delegates that arrived from Spain before the elections of July 28th in Venezuela. It is being defined as the same way that in 1936 the future of the humankind is being defined in the future of the humankind, as in Spain in 1936 and 1939 was defined the future of Europe and the humankind. How many maneuvers were? Mr. Ambassador, you know this better than me. How many maneuvers there were to let perform, to cloud, to not listen, to build, decide. How many agreements were signed, how many blackmails there were. And at the time that the Spanish people needed to be defended, all of them stood back and left Mussolini and left Hitler to destroy the hope of an entire people, and impose to a traitor fraction that from Morocco started the war against the Spanish Republica and imposed a dictatorship for 40 years. 40 years. It would say that there was over 1 million of missing people and dead. Today in Spain, there is a memorial commission, something like that, and it's making accountable even today on 2024, almost 90 years after the war, called the Spanish Civil War, that it wasn't another thing that the Mussolini intervention to impose the fascism, also called Franquism in Spain. It is account 300,000 of missing people still in Spain. In Spain was decided the future of that war. When it was defeated, the Republic, we can say that minutes after Hitler invaded Poland, was surrounded Czechoslovakia, the Czech Republic, as a present in the Munich agreements, and they annulled the Soviet Union with their agreements of the Ribbentrop and Molotov agreements, with the Soviet Union believed and signed, and Stalin said that was the highest cost ever of his life, to sign an agreement with the form of a ministry with the Nazi, who was imposed the Nazi diplomacy with the support of the Western diplomacy. At the time, with the United States support, the Italy and France surrendered, because before that being taken by Hitler, France was surrendered already, and it was being added believing that they weren't after them. Cowardly was imposed, and what we could name, making a parallel situation, what we could call a sort of imposed democracy, submitted to the pressures of the ones with the power. And they let Spain fall, over 1 million dead bodies, 1 million of exiled people, and an atrocious dictatorship of Francisco Franco that was on for 40 years, that put Spain into racism and colonialism, that still today the Spanish society is struggling with the ghost remains of the Franco's days, expressed in political groups as bots that are trying to take back the conquer and the genocide and the colonialism in America, and that are one of the main points of the colonialism in Europe. Today in Venezuela, in a different conditions, it's been given the same battle in peace, with a powerful and strong institutionality, a popular power with territorial capability, to guarantee the peace, the work, and the life of the people. A military power that is strong, patriot, and willing to fight with the will of combat, with their own doctrines and with their strategic concept, the spine of the defense of the homeland and the humankind values. 5 constitutional power which are solid in permanent renovation and change. 5 powers that have the capacity to face different circumstances. The legislative power recovered and strong, the judicial power solid, the electoral power only in the history of our America, the moral and citizen power active, with initiative, prestige, and legal and constitutional strength, the executive power uniting the force of the nation. If 100 years ago the Nazis and the fascists was the reaction, the demon reaction, the evil reaction of the empire against what they were considering a danger, the ideals of socialism and the consolidation of a new power, today is being upsurging the fascism and the neo-fascism. I'm not saying that because I could say that in the circumstances. You're in the United Nations, you know the phenomena that are in the world, but it's saying the entire world. You say that Joe Biden yesterday in the declarations, Europe is saying it. What is happening in Europe? The currents of prosecutions against the migrants. What is happening in Europe? The upsurge of the fascism that has even got into the higher power of some governments that still don't hasn't have free hands to do their will with the countries and with the world. You saw the inauguration ceremony of Paris 2024, the worst Olympic of the humankind, the most clouded and gray ones, the mock to our Lord Jesus Christ and Christianism, and the attempt to impose in a ceremony, Olympic ceremony of inauguration, satanic cult criteria that are managing the power even beyond our imaginations or thoughts. And yesterday was a scandal in the social network of Europe. And we're very busy and we don't know, but also they put a warrior that they set a warrior with a spear crossing from United States to Asia to Africa. That's a symbol of the intentions, but why that reaction? And that's a very clear answer that we have here. Why this reaction? These brutal reactions where it can be done anything, it can be imposed anything. It is really simple. The search of a new multipolar world that cannot be controlled. The search of the BRICS and alternative regions and alternative power regions that are drawing a world multi-diverse with different cultures, different poles, a new geopolitical scene for the power. And it seems like in front of the new geopolitical of power, the monsters of fascism rise again. The enemies of colonialism, the old elites from colonialism that were the elite for 600 years, their genes only were producing is violent reactions. And Venezuela is in the X. Not today, not yesterday. It's been for a long while at the spotlight, because Venezuela has been and is the crown jewel for the imperialist elites of the United States and beyond, and their allies is the crown jewel. So here in Venezuela, the fascist project from hatred, revenge and violence that wanted to lead us to a civil war situation of foreign intervention, of coup d'etat, of division among Venezuelans, is the expression of the new colonial and fascist project that in the world the elites are trying to impose. That's why sometimes I even ask myself, a humble lady in Barcelona said, "Look, Nicolás, you at this time, you're David. And why? Why? Because you're facing to Goliath." And I took the biblical advice of the lady and I started to develop for the people. And at the end, if you're David, that we're carrying the strength of God and an entire people, Goliath rised. Why in the center of the cyber attacks? Political, from media, psychological, from diplomacy, it's found the hyper tech power of the millionaires of United States against Venezuela. Why it can be found a new faces as Elon Musk, but even in the world there is a reaction, as at the time was a reaction against Hitler. Today there is a reaction against the tendency of Elon Musk of wanting to control the public opinion and to control the politics with their ideology of apartheid, because Elon Musk is a son of apartheid. It's a man of Nazi ideology. Why the attempt of invasion of February 23rd of 2019 was financed by Jeff Bezos, the famous concert of Cucuta, Richard Branson, and what they use in all the communication power of the hyper millionaires. We could say from the new elite of the oligarchy of the United States and the world that has a power that never had in the communications area and the cultural area today. A power that are being used into different purposes. In 2019, November was used to defeat the Evo Morales, president of Bolivia, and also Elon Musk went out of the light and said, I did that, I did it for the lithium, and we are in conditions of defeat any government in the world, the hyper-imperialism of the technology industry. These are reflections that I want to share to start of this day, where we're going to receive reports of the General Prosecutor as the President of the Republic Council about the terrorist reactions after July 28th and the result in the preliminary investigations. And also we're going to receive reports of Dr. Delcy Rodriguez about the care of the victims of the fascist violence of 2024. Also, we have a report of Dr. Gabriela Jimenez, Vice President of Science and Technology, about the cyber attacks to the society and state of Venezuela and alternatives that we have. And we have a report of Dr. Jorge Rodriguez and Minister Alfred Nazaret about the intelligence war of the 21st century, because Venezuela is the crown jewel but also the vanguard in the fight of this stage against fascism, against the neo-Nazi currents, and against the attempt to impose a new colonialism. That's why I'm saying to these people and all the Venezuelan society, here the alternatives are very clear. Colonialism, slavery, or independency and freedom. Interventionism, war, or peace and sovereignty. True democracy from the Constitution, or love for our things, respect and tolerance, or hatred, vengeance, intolerance, and death. There it is. That cross every generation. These are the dilemmas of our generation. Not be confused. Everything that is being set up behind is the power of United States. Behind is the power of thousands of dollars of Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, Mark Zuckerberg, and company. It was the attempt to defeat one of the most beautiful projects that has been birthed out of the root, very beautiful root. The project of socialism in Venezuela. There's a state, there is a national union and a popular power, and we will continue to consolidate with the truth, with the constitution, the justice, the legality, the order, and the peace. And Venezuela, with this fight, the immense fight that is given, our country will write again the exemplary history for the millions of men and women in the world that are watching us with admiration, and that are also taking the lead to fight 100 years after to not be imposed again the fascism and the Nazism. Don't let you be confused in this world.